This is Liz Franzel with Crawford Media Group in Denver, and today our guest is Craig Huey, renowned speaker, political commentator, international business owner, and author, and has appeared on numerous media platforms. Today we'll be talking about news that mainstream media does not cover. Welcome to our program, Craig.
Liz, it's great to be with you.
Craig, let's talk about the Biden flight program for our listeners that have no idea what this is about, and I didn't really realize that was going on either. But the flight program for illegals and how it has affected the United States.
Well, Liz, one of the problems people have is so many people get their news from social media or the biased media where there's literally a blackout of what is happening. And one of the things that's so outrageous, of course, is all the people coming across our borders that people, are able to get through. We don't know if they're terrorists. We don't know if they're criminals, if they're gang members. We have no clue who these people are. Mm-hmm. And then also we're paying education, medicine, housing, food, free cell phones. Well, to the shock of so many, mm-hmm. We're also flying people in for free. Over 320,000 people have been on Biden's air flight program since 2022, and it might even be more. And as we're speaking, they're still being flown in. From 43 airports in the U.S., they're being taken from countries like Cuba and Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, Ecuador, other countries, and we don't know who these people are. All they've done is take an app and say, I want to be on the plane, and they're invited to go on the plane and come here, and we don't know where they ultimately end up and whether or not these people are going to be good citizens or not, but they're sure here for a lot of freebies.
No background check. Nothing other than getting on an app and saying, I want to go?
That's all it is. That's all it is. And then they got a few quick questions at immigration, and then they're told, well, sometime in the future you come back and we'll talk to you. And we'll never know where these people are. They'll just be somewhere. And this is not right. This is really legalized plunder of the American taxpayer, mm-hmm. a complete giveaway. And so from a moral and ethical standpoint, this is just wrong.
So when they do fly them here, they go to 43 different American airports. What happens? What happens when they land? How do they get around, and where do they stay, and what do they do?
Yes. Much of it is nonprofit organizations that get massive amounts of money from the federal government. And these nonprofit groups come and meet the people. They try to locate, give them transportation to housing. The people decide, do I want to go to Chicago? Do I want to go to Denver? Do I want to go to New York? Where do I want to go? Maybe I'll go to California and get, a lot of freebies. And so they'll make their choices as to where they want to go, and that nonprofit will work with them to be able to get there at taxpayers' expense. If there's a legal issue, they will have a free lawyer to be able to work with them. And so the infrastructure is set up, and these nonprofit organizations are making a fortune because literally we've got millions and millions of dollars being poured into these nonprofit groups just to take care of those coming over here illegally.
So when they do get here and they get all these services, as far as continuing on, are they put in jobs? Are they taking jobs mm-hmm. that Americans should have?
Yes. So part of the issue is that the Biden program includes going to the people and trying to get them signed up for health care, in which case they will have an opportunity to be registered to vote. Some of these people are going to be getting Social Security numbers, different type of IDs, and all of these situations give them an opportunity to actually vote. Liz, here's the shocking thing. These nonprofit groups want these people to sign up and register to vote. There's not following the law on this at all. But also, if the person who's getting this sheet of paper that signs them up, and let's say they're trying to get on Obamacare, and they have a voter registration tag there, and the person says, be sure to fill this out, they can vote, say, I'm legally able to register, or I'm not legally able to register. They're not going to probably check off, I'm not legally registered. They'll be afraid to do so, or they might not quite understand it, and they could check off, I'm legally registered to vote, and they get automatically registered. This is just part of the problem of what's being done. They try to get some jobs on their own, but if they can't get the jobs, they're going to have their housing, they're going to have their welfare, they're going to have their free food. It's a welfare state for millions of people. In this case, for the 320,000 who came over here, my estimate is that most of them are simply on government welfare at this point.
And is there a cutoff point for that?
There is not. There's no end game.
Wow. There's
no way of accountability. It's completely out of control. And you know, the bottom line is that there is an ideology out of Washington, D.C., that the way to transform our culture and politics forever is that you come up with the illegal aliens becoming citizens. You come up with a Census Bureau which is going to count them, which is going to reshape the congressional districts in the favor of the Democrats. So it's really a partisan scheme to be able to increase numbers and increase voters, ultimately, whether legal or not, down the road. And so for them, the open border policy without accountability is something that's in their self-interest. And as long as it can continue, it will continue.
Yeah, and I think, you know, so many people do not vote, American citizens, you know, and this obviously is hijacking the vote, period, right? To sway it in one direction. Let's call it the left direction. And
absolutely.
And you know, I think it's so important that we mention here on the station a lot. It's really important to get the word out for people to vote.
Yes.
And because otherwise, you know, things like this can, you know, devastate our nation. And we watch it on the sidelines if you don't vote.
It's frightening to see what's happening before our very eyes for ourselves, our kids, our grandkids, for the future of America. We've got to be able to make sure this election we vote for, not against our values. And for anyone who's a believer in Christ, any Christians who are listening right now, we know that some 20% of the evangelical born-again Christians in any church are not registered to vote. And we also know that of those who are registered to vote, it's usually about 30%, maybe sometimes 40% who are registered but don't vote. In other words, we're allowing these nonprofit groups, we're allowing the community organizers, we're allowing those people who are trying to bring down our culture, our economy, and our politics to an ideologically kind of aliens, pro-socialist society. We're allowing them to win simply because we're not getting out the vote. They are.
Exactly. And I think so many of them, first of all, I do not believe that the majority of churches and pastors speak this from the pulpit, and they're so concerned about the whole church and state and forget that that whole system was put in place to protect the church from the state telling them what to do. And another thing I think too are, you know, all the Christians, and there are many, we've brought this to light here on the station several times, that, you know, they sit on the sidelines thinking, well, my vote won't count, and or God God's going to take care of this. He's going to do what, his will in this. Well, that's not his will for us to be in a communist country. It's not his will for us to be oppressed by government.
Liz, so well said. And the fact is, any Christian out there, a way of loving our neighbor is to vote. Mm-hmm. The way to be able to protect our First Amendment rights to speak out and spread the gospel, we need to be people who vote. Because those who want to take away that right of free speech, they are planning on winning. The fact is, on the ballot in this election, whether it's on the local, state, or national level, we've got the issue of the war on Christianity that's going on now. We have the weaponization of government that is targeting pro-life of leaders and activists to try to silence them. We have on the ballot Israel. We have on and this whole insanity of the attack on Israel and ignoring Genesis. I will bless those that bless thee and curse those that curse thee. Mm-hmm. And we have on the ballot the persecuted church. We've got to vote for candidates that are going to follow policies that are going to promote a free nation and protect our religious liberty.
Exactly. And, it's basically, if you think about it, it's really not Democrat or Republican. It's vote for your faith. Vote for for God's will, for what he says is right biblically. You do that, and you're going to see all of these, candidates, what they stand for. Well, hopefully you can, because a lot of it they don't reveal, but what they stand for and what they don't. And that's where you put your vote. Do it for God and what your faith is, because otherwise we're going against that whole system that God put in place.
Absolutely. Silence, not voting, not helping get a good candidate elected, it's like saying, okay, I'm going to let evil triumph. Lord Acton was the one, I think, maybe it was Edmund Burke, that all that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And too many Christians, maybe they've got good intentions. They're not going to be voting in this upcoming election. They're not going to be volunteering for helping out and help a candidate win while the opposition is. And too many pastors are going to be silent from the pulpit when they've got to say to their fellowship, you've got to register to vote your values, and you got to vote and vote your values. There's so much that can be done, and the time is short. The election's coming up very quickly. Early voting in almost every state starts in September.
Exactly. We've been visiting with Craig Huey, speaker, political commentator, business owner, and author. And we've been talking about how mainstream media does not really report the news, and they are not transparent in what they choose to report. Craig, tell us, our listeners, where they can go to learn more. But also, I know that you have a voter guide that I'm sure will be very instrumental in how they can vote. Absolutely.
They can learn about the voter guide and know how to vote for even candidates on the local level in most states, or at least the major candidates in different states. Liz, they can also know how to vote for the judges. We cover every judge from Colorado to all the different states, and they can see the voter guide, sign up for the newsletter. I have a new book out called The Great Deception, 10 Shocking Dangers and the Blueprint for Rescuing the American Dream, that really talks about these unknown, little-known issues that everybody needs to know about and how to be able to stand up for freedom.
Well, I just encourage all of our listeners to vote, to go to CraigHuey.com. That's CraigHuey.com. Find out how you can vote, how you can get involved in turning this nation around. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Liz.